Hello students, I hope you're having a wonderful day today. I hope you're still feeling well and no one is sick around you. Today we're going to be having a virtual lesson and we're going to be continuing on to Unit 1, the 13 original colonies. Today we're going to look in depth of these colonies. We're going to look at the different regions and what they were known for, what the people were like there, and what kind of government that they had in these colonies. And so for just a second, I want you to think back in your mind from previous classes. What are some things that when I say the word 13 colonies, what are some of the first things you think of? Or do you think of things like maybe taxes? Because that would be a big issue that would happen later on that caused the Revolutionary War. Would you start thinking of different names of regions or of states of the original 13 colonies? Would you be thinking of different people, some famous wars that may be going on? Well, that's good that you are starting to remember some of these things because they're going to be very important for understanding what's going on here in this region, this time period of the 13 colonies before the Revolutionary War. Also, I want you to take a moment and think in your mind, maybe do you know something specific about what kind of people lived where? Or maybe do you know what the economy was like for certain regions, certain cities? Today we're going to discover those, we're going to look into those, and we're going to learn about these three regions and how they were very important to what Great Britain was doing in this time. So let's identify just real quick the three regions of the 13 original colonies. So let's start up here in the north, and this pink shaded area, you can access this map online in the resources docs on Schoology, but this pink shaded area right here, this would be called the New England colonies. The New England colonies are not the northern colonies. A lot of people get those mixed up and think of when the North was in war with the South in the Civil War. That's not what's going on right here. We're in a different time period. This is the New England colonies shaded here in the pink, and they consisted of states like Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island right there in that very, very small spot, and Connecticut. Those were your New England colonies in the pink. Let's go to the yellow right here. You have states like these are the middle colonies right here. The middle colonies consisted of the states of New Jersey, the states of Pennsylvania, of Massachusetts, and New York, and New Hampshire. Those were your middle colonies in the yellow right here. Even though they're still kind of far, what we would consider north, they are the middle colonies. Then here in the burnt orange, the pumpkin-looking orange, these are going to be the southern colonies. The southern colonies consisted of states like Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Those are your breakdowns of the region of the 13 original colonies. New England in the pink, the middle colonies in the yellow, and finally the southern in the burnt orange, the pumpkin-looking orange. Let's take a moment now and let's dive into each region and see things about like their economy, their goods and services they produced. They would grow things here, ship it back home. What did they do in the New England colonies, the middle or the southern colonies? What were the people like? What was the culture like? What was some characteristics of these people? And what kind of government did each colony have? Were they all the same or were they all different? So at first, we're going to look right here at the pink region. And I'm going to scroll here, and this website is available on your resources. Let's look at the New England colonies. Here we see a painting of a New England shipyard. That kind of is going to go ahead and tell you what kind of people lived there. Mostly sailors, right? They shipped a lot there. They built ships there. You're starting to picture things in your mind. This shipyard is huge. It takes up a lot of space. It's got to be bigger than a football field because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, possibly up almost 10 ships. There's 2 or 3 more over there in this shipyard. So that kind of starts telling you what kind of people lived there, what they were known for, what their economy was like. So being in the north, being north of this equator, which is would be way down here on the map, the further north you go, we know the colder it gets. So the climate here is going to be a very cold climate. For people coming from Great Britain, from England over here, and if they would have landed in this area, it would have been very, very cold in the summer. But that also means it would have been very, very hard to survive. Because in this colder climate, the summer and then the fall, which are the times that you would grow things, that's shorter. And the colder season is longer. So we now know that in this region, it's hard for things to survive here and for things to grow here. But that also tells us about the geography of this area. This area, the Appalachian Mountains run through this area, right up in this region. So there's a lot of mountain there. That means there'd be a lot of bears and a lot of deer and other animals like that in this region. There would be a lot of trees there, and trees would be good to produce wood, which produces things at this time like ships, houses, buildings, docks, barns, so on. So now we see that they were known for shipbuilding because they had so much wood there. They were known for trading furs because there were so many bears and animals that and they would wear furs for coats and things, and people still do, but a different type of texture and fur. So we start seeing now that they're known for building ships, shipping wood out to build other things back in England or here in these other colonies. They're known for fish because look at all this water. Think of all the fish and stuff that could be. Let me just make this a little bit bigger. Think of all the fish and things that could be here. This is the ocean, so you have whales. We don't have whales in the Gulf of Mexico down here, but there are whales in the Atlantic Oceans. They were known for hunting whales, killing the whales, and for food, for meat, and also for different things. So there is so much economic opportunity that this region has that these regions don't. You'll see as we continue on in the lesson, there are things that the New England colonies had, economy-wise, like building ships and stuff, that these other colonies had. And then you're going to see things that only the New England colonies had that these colonies didn't. And as we go on, like I said, you will see these differentialities and what they had in common. So the New England colonies, they're known for having that kind of economy where they're building ships and so on. The culture, these people, and you're going to see that each region has a different type of people. And not saying that they're different skin colors or different things like that, but the characteristics of these people are different. As you go south, as you come north, they're all different. This pink shaded area, these New England colonies, were mostly Puritan settlers. Puritan settlers that were fleeing the King of England because of religious persecution. Remember, we learned about that when the Mayflower came over. These people were running away to get a new start, and so they could flee from religious persecution. These are Puritan colonies. And the root word of Puritan obviously is purity, meaning that they believe in a certain way of life, living a pure way of life. And you're going to say that this is different from these two regions, especially the different kinds of people. Ironically, there was no religious freedom here. They were only Puritan type of people. So that tells us about the people. Let's look at the government. How are their government systems set up? In the New England colonies, all of the systems of government, they elected their own legislator, and they were all democratic, which is what we are today in the United States. They all had governors, they all have a governor's court, and they had a court system. The governors of the New England colonies were a royal of charter. Now, this is a vocabulary word, two vocabulary words actually in one that is in your book. A royal of charter is a mixture of two forms of government. You have a royal charter, which means that the colonies would have been ruled by the monarch in England, which would be the king. And then you have a charter form of government. That means that the charter colonies were self-governed, and their charters were granted by the colonists. So that's where you see the form of democracy come in. Even though they elected their own officials like we do, they still had to answer to the king way back over, which will be this way back over in England. So that is the New England colonies, not the northern, but the New England colonies. Let's look now at this yellow area, the middle colonies. The middle colonies consisted of states like Pennsylvania, Delaware, New York, and New Jersey. And we don't really think of New York being in a middle colony, but in this case, they are in the middle colony. And if we get this picture, and we may zoom in a little bit on it, this picture kind of tells us what life would be like here in the middle colonies. It looks like we're at a farm right here. There's cows, there's horses, there's people. Looks like he's farming. He has a trough in his hand. He's going into here. There's sheep. There's some slaves here working in this field right here. And roosters, turkey, so on. So that kind of tells us what's going on here in the middle colonies. What kind of people can we expect here in the middle colonies? And I'll come back to that map here in just once. There it is, actually. That's what kind of people we have going on here in the middle colonies. We have a lot of farm land, and that's going to kind of tell you about the economy. They were farmers. The soil, the area where this is, the soil is so much better in the middle colonies than it is in the northern, the New England colonies. The New England colonies. The soil is better. So you're going to start seeing more things, more farms in this area. As you come south, you'll start seeing more farms here. Now, that was not the only thing that this economy had. This economy was also along that Appalachian mountain line. This is how they're like. They also had very good shipbuilders that lived in this area. They also had tons of wood. So they were able to trade wood. And there's different types of trees and different types of wood as you go in different regions of our country. You're going to start seeing that a lot of trading and a lot of selling off and stuff of this wood, that was a vital part of this economy. And they were shipping it back to England. They were building ships and sending the better ships back to England, building more houses, building more barns, and so on. The climate of this area, as you see now, it's a little bit south. It's a little bit more south than the New England colonies. So that means it's a little bit warmer. It's not as cold. That's why when these pilgrims, when they got here in the New Jersey area and such, they were able to survive a lot better than these people who first got here, and they got here in the New England area, because it was so cold there. It was hard for people to grow things and grow food and necessities to survive. So people here were able to survive better and get off on an easier foot. And speaking of these people are going to be there's not a fine line that divides these people, but this area would have been mostly a people that was not really Puritans. This would be predominantly a Puritan area. This would not be. There was more religious freedom in the middle colonies than there was in the New England colonies. Like I said, this is predominantly Puritan, and here you're open to different types of religions, like the Quakers and the Catholics and Lutherans, Jews, and others. So you're going to start seeing the further we go south, the less really strict it is. The government of the middle colonies, and government is a huge deal of why we went into a revolution, and so this is very important that we understand what types of government they had here before the Revolutionary War. The government of the the government of the middle colonies, they elected their own legislator. They were also a democratic form of government, except New York. New York was strictly controlled by King George back in England, which is kind of interesting. They didn't really elect their own officials. These other middle colonies did. These up here, these New England colonies, elected their own officials. But yet, King George still had charge and could overrule them at any time. They were a royal charter form of government. So we're starting to see how the New England and the middle colonies are alike and different. Let's throw the southern colonies in here now. These southern colonies that are in this burnt orange area. We're going to click here and we're going to look at this painting right here. This southern colony's painting is of a cotton plantation. Better soil in the south. They were able to grow cotton, tobacco, corn, beans, and so on. And we still grow that stuff today. So this dates back a very long time here. The climate is so much warmer here than it is up in the New England colonies, in the middle colonies. And so it's easier for things to grow here. We're also along the Appalachian mountain line again. So now you have a lot more timber. You have a lot of fish with the water here. Not as many whales as it would be up there, but we do have a lot of fish. And there's used for shipbuilding, the wood's used for shipbuilding, used for building houses and building barns and so on. So colonies are able to trade with each other, different types of meat, different types of wood, different types of things. And we also are sending all this stuff back to England, because England is basically the reason why these were planted is because England had such a big war debt. Because they loved to go to war with France. And France finally put the whooping on them and cost them a lot of money. So these colonies came over here like we talked about. They grew all this stuff. They sent it back over to King George. And King George would sell it so that he could make all that money and make that debt go down. The southern colonies, though, had a different kind of people. They had a very laid-back kind of people. There was not a predominant religion there. You see here, though, the types of people are different than the middle colonies. There were more Baptists here, there were more Methodists here, and there were more Catholics kind of stopped in this area before as you come on down. And Georgia was actually known as a colony for prisoners, so the further you go south, the less religious it gets, basically, as you study this map. The form of government they had, the government of the southern colonies, consisted of the same style of government as the middle colonies. This is how they're alike. They had a democracy. They had a proprietary form of government. The king granted land to the people of the southern colonies, and they formed their own style of government. And that's what proprietary means, is that the king will grant them land, and they come together and form their own style of government. So when we review this lesson, we see how these colonies are alike. We see how they're different. So now I want you to take a few minutes. I want you to get out the iPad, get to an internet source. I want you to just Google, and I want you to discover, and I want you to research these colonies, New England, middle, and southern colonies. I want you to research those, form a chart comparing and contrasting the colonies. Pick two regions, You can pick the New England, you can pick the southern, compare, contrast them, or vice versa, or throw the middle one in there if you would like to. Make a chart, submit that online under the assignments box that we have, and I will go over those. There's also a rubric on there where you can kind of see what is required. Make sure you please include at least 3 facts under each section. But before you leave today, I want to ask you a couple questions to make you think as you leave and to start your lesson. The 13 original colors are divided up into which regions? The New England, the middle, and the southern. Each colony had some features they were alike, and there were some that were different. And you'll see that in the economy, the government, and the characteristics or the culture of the people who lived there. Think about this. Really look into how each one was different. Each climate for sure was different because of its location. Each geography of each region is different because of its location. Those are some differences. Some of the similarities come in the economy, what they grew, what they hunted, what they traded. And finally, how did life here become the foundation of how our life would improve today? So is our life alike, these people today? Do we still hunt the same things? Do we still build the same ships? Do we still do the same things? Do that assignment, turn it in online, and I will look forward to seeing your results, students. Have a great and wonderful evening. Please stay well.